I made two recent videos, Stellar Blade, censorship, and the censorship, comparing the non-censored and the censored version of Stellar Blade. The one, and I labeled both of them, um, which was basically Stellar Blade, uncensored and censored outfits and costumes of Stellar Blade. So the one title was me pretty much expressing and showing the censorship in uncensored costumes with anger and frustration, and I'm just swearing quite a bit. During that time when I was just labeled expressing myself with anger of the uncensored and censored costumes of Stellar Blade in comparison to one another. So I have one where it's me, where I labeled of me expressing my frustration and anger. And in that video, I'm kind of swearing quite a bit. And yeah, you can just tell my anger is pretty much quite high, and almost you can say that it's boiling over. And I have labeled both of those videos when it comes to me comparing the censored and uncensored versions of Eve's costumes from Stellar Blade. And of course, I labeled one of them expressing myself more calmly in one of the videos, and then the other video I labeled it as expressing myself with anger. The one expressing myself with anger, like I said, that one I was swearing quite a bit because I think I was just really letting out a lot of steam, a lot of frustration and anger. So that video was you can definitely tell it's very upset because if you end up watching it, I'm swearing quite a bit, and I am also showing YouTube videos of side-by-side comparisons of the censored version and the uncensored version of Eve's costume from Stellar Blade, or Eve's outfits from Stellar Blade. So that one is labeled expressing myself with anger, and then the other one is the same thing, like doing kind of a comparison of the censored and uncensored version of Eve's outfit and costumes from Eve from Stellar Blade, and that one is expressing myself more calmly. So in that one, I'm not really swearing as much, and I'm not kind of like saying "f you" to Shift Up and Sony in that one, because I was trying to be a little more calm, and so you won't hear me kind of saying you won't hear me kind of swearing, saying the "f you" to Sony and Shift Up, as well as insulting them and calling them things like they have no backbone. They're two-faced liars, etc., and so on. What I want to do in this video is I really definitely want to just explain what's been happening. My name is Curtis. I don't want to give you my last name because I don't need people looking me up, but of course it really doesn't matter because I think on my YouTube it even has my last name, so irregardless, or regardless, I don't know if you're I watch Family Guy, and apparently irregardless might not be a word, but at least regardless is, but so I'm just going to use regardless. But regardless, it doesn't really matter if you do actually go on my YouTube channel and then figure out my full name, because like I said, I think my YouTube channel actually has my full name on it. So, but I wanted to really go over Stellar Blade, as well as Final Fantasy, and really what's been happening within the last 10 years, and a little introduction about me. I've been playing video games for more than 20 years. I'm pretty much 40 years old, kind of a little older than 40 years old right now, and I've been playing video games since I was like pretty much a very young child. I'm not going to say like an exceptionally young child, but I was definitely, I'm probably, I'm 13, 14, 15 playing video games. Maybe even a little younger than 13, probably even like 11 or 12. So I've been pretty much playing games since I was roughly around, I'm 12 years old, all the way till now. And I'm pretty much a little older than 40. So, I'm playing games since I've been roughly around 12 years old. and then playing games to pretty much my age now, which is, I'm over 40. Um, like I said, I have more than 20 years of experience playing video games. And I've played tons of video games, and I've played hack and slash, I played shooters, I played strategy. Um, I pretty much have played any game that you can think of. I've even played sports games like racing and like basketball games, hockey games. Um, and those are games I normally don't really typically play. They're not really part of my genre or the kind of games that I particularly prefer to play. Not my type. Um, but I've pretty much played every game you can imagine. And even if I don't play them on a regular basis, I've at least tried them a few times. So, like I said, I've been playing video games for more than 20 years of my life. And, pretty much out of pretty much the 20 years I've been playing, about, 10 of those years have just been nothing but just more drastic censorship over the years. To just making female video game characters absolutely atrocious and unattractive with no sex appeal fan service. And this really predominantly happened in the West, not so much the East, but it predominantly happened in the West, and it really started with the West within the last 10 years. So when I was playing for a little more than 20 years, about 10 years out of that 20 years, I'm like, there was no censorship from Sony or Xbox or PC. Like games were coming out and kind of games were, developer would make the game and then it would be sent straight to, EB Games or basically a store that sold video games. There was really no journalists, there was no localizers, there was no consultants. It was, and the developer would just create a game, however they intended the game to be, and they would just ship it out to a store to put it on their shelves to sell that product. And that was pretty much, 20 years ago, even more than 20 years ago, and that was kind of the procedure. There was, like I said, there was no middle person, there was no middleman or middlewoman that, and would get a free copy from a game developer and to review the game. The creators and the developer would just simply make the game, give it to a shop or a store to basically put it on their shelves and sell the game. And, and the developers just had to really hope that it either did well or it didn't, or didn't do well, but they just really had to hope that the game sold, because and they didn't more than 20 years ago, and more than even more than 10 years ago, we didn't have these woke consultants, localizers, and journalists, these left-wing woke feminists pushing this woke ideology that we've had for the last 10 years. So like I said, a game would be developed and would be given to a store to put it on the shelves to sell the game, and developers would just have to hope that the game sold, or at least it sold well. And even back then too, like games didn't rely on the internet. They basically were on disc, and even before disc, it was on a cartridge. And in that cartridge, even on disc, because developers and it wasn't really, how can I say this, hooked up directly to the internet. Whatever was on the disc, whatever was on the cartridge is what you got. There was no way, because the internet wasn't hooked up to anybody's system, that they can just patch things or alter or change things. Even if you bought even if you had a copy, whether it was digital or physical, of that game. So they didn't have any way to really do things that they do, that they've been able to do within the last 5 years, or roughly, give or take. So you would buy a cartridge and you just have whatever content that was meant to be, and there would never be any alterations. So, and I want to kind of go over the 3 stages of what's been happening within the last 10 years. I know that whenever I get angry and I get frustrated, I'm not really sure if I'm explaining these 3 stages quite well, or if I'm kind of being very accurate with how I'm explaining it, because I think at this point, when I do try and explain it, I'm just very agitated, angry, and upset that I think I don't really think things through of how I'm presenting what I'm trying to explain when it comes to the 3 stages. I think my anger and frustration does kind of take over my thinking process a little bit. And normally I'm not a very angry person. I'm a very easygoing person. I don't really like conflict. I don't like to start conflict with anybody. I try and really keep to myself because I really don't enjoy conflict. And yeah, so I just really don't like conflict. But like I said, with what's been happening for the last 10 years with left wing Democrat, like woke feminist ideology being pushed by woke feminists that are predominantly left wing, uh, it's just very hard to me to keep my composure and my calmness, especially when it comes to video games, because I've been playing video games, like I said, for more than 20 years. I absolutely love video games, and it's the one thing that I like to do just to escape from just everyday stress of the reality that I live in. It's a means of escapism. I hate that word so much. Escapism, yeah, it's ism, escapism, and it's a form of escapism for me, just to kind of like get away from everyday stress that and I go through. And of course, my everyday stress is not going to be the same as anybody else's everyday stress. We all have something that we have to end up going through that's not always the pleasant in life. But for me, video games have always been a way for me to kind of escape that stress, and to just really be able to do something that like allows me to just shut off everything that's going on around me, to put myself in a whole different reality, a whole different sphere of imagination, of possibilities, and it's really allowed me to kind of and do things I could never do within my own reality and within this world, and to kind of have things that I could never have because of expectations of put on myself, by myself, or by others, and to be able to do things that I just I never had the opportunity to do for circumstances that I don't really want to explain or go over, because that's just going into a lot of my life, and I just don't want to do that. But yeah, video games were always a form for me to kind of just escape my reality, and to be able to do things that I normally would never be able to do, to be able to accomplish things that I would never be able to accomplish, to have things I would never really be able to have, and to so I've said to do things that I could never do, to accomplish things I could never accomplish, and to be something I could never be, and to have things I could never have, and that's pretty much why I've always turned to video games. It's because just that interactability of really being able to feel like I'm a part of a whole new reality, other than separate than the one that I'm living in, this reality of me being existing in it, and it allowed me to kind of like use that imagination and the possibilities of kind of like being somewhere else, even though I wasn't, into a whole different reality. And it was, so that's why like I've always appreciated games, and it's the fact like it's something that's always been like, to me personally, a way of creativity, in the form of artistic expression. And so yeah, and I've always been somebody that, besides I don't like ruffling feathers. I don't like to find conflict or cause conflict. I just pretty much don't like conflict, and I always try and just be an easygoing person, keep to myself, and I not try and ruffle feathers. But and like when I'm trying to just coexist in my own world without causing turmoil, but I have other people that kind of like it's taking away what I used to enjoy in my life, so I can kind of escape from this reality, so I can avoid that conflict, and just so I can have a more relaxed, easygoing, and joyful life. And I have these woke feminists taking away things from me that really help me to kind of relax and and escape my reality. And I don't want to go on more with that, with like trauma or kind of explain or go into details of what my life has been like. I think that's kind of a little too personal, explaining any of that stuff, so I'm not going to do that. Uh, yeah, and it's just frustrating because, like I said, like more than 10 years ago, I'd never had to deal with something like this. And when it comes to Stellar Blade, well, Stellar Blade, I was even like Dead or Alive, just it was a way to kind of like feel like I can actually have, like I said, things that I could never have in the real world. Unfortunately, I'm not Mr. Charming. I've never really been successful at in finding love. I've just had really bad luck in that area. So I want to have a game that allows me to have an attractive female video game character in it that has sex appeal and fan service, and she's attractive. I'm gonna gravitate towards that because it's something that and I can have in this whole new different reality in the video game that and honestly I've just had really bad luck and I've always struggled with in the real world. So and it's more so that that's why and I like video games. Like I said, it's basically like I think I used a metaphor, or I don't know if you would call it a metaphor, but I kind of used an example, anyways. At least I could call it an example of Neil, on how like Neo is kind of trying to escape his virtual reality to go to a whole different reality where he can be something that he's never been, because he's just tired of who he is with this reality that he thinks is real. And it's kind of ironic because like Neil's trying to escape a digital reality that feels authentic to go to a reality that's actually really authentic, than the one that he's trying to escape. And I think for gamers it's the same thing. Gamers are trying to escape from in our reality so they can kind of be that Neo character to put themselves in a whole different reality. Ironically, with Neo, was trying to escape a virtual reality and put himself into a world that was real. I'm not going to say realistic, but a reality that was real and not virtual or digital. And for gamers, it's kind of the opposite, but yet still Neo in the sense where and they're trying to escape, something that's a reality, and go somewhere that's in a digital virtual reality. So yeah, and like I said, besides somebody that doesn't like ruffle feathers or cause fights or conflict, I've always been somebody that believes, like I said, in a free market. And I've always been somebody that's passionate about standing up and standing my ground for not just a free market, but for freedom of expression and free speech. And it just feels like that's something that's been taken away over the last, in 10 years, especially with this woke feminist ideology that's being pushed, and how it's really causing a lot of people to be indoctrinated by it, because, they kind of expect you to comply and conform. And obviously you see what happens when you don't comply or conform. They go on a rampage and calling male gamers incels and sexist and goomers and what I don't even know what that word is supposed to mean. And that just wants to jack off all the time, like they're basically sexual deviants. But yeah, I want to really just talk about in this video the 3 stages. That's kind of what I want to really talk about, and that's what I'm going to start doing right now. It's just talking about that. I just want to go through a little description of like my experience with video games, the kind of personality I am, because in my videos with Stellar Blade, I was kind of yelling a lot, maybe raising my voice, not so much yelling, but okay, well, it could be yelling. I was raising my voice more than higher than I normally have, the pitch of my voice, as well as swearing quite a bit, especially with the one Stellar Blade that was expressing myself with anger. The one with expressing myself more calmly, I wasn't doing that much, but I think I was still kind of frustrated and agitated. So I might have still been doing it a little bit, while I was showing YouTube videos of the comparison of the censored and the uncensored costumes. Well, the two costumes of Eve from Stellar Blade. So, like I said, I want to talk through the different stages. So, the first stage, which happened, like I said, at the beginning of the 10 years, that's light censorship. What light censorship kind of entails and applies is the light censorship kind of, well, like I said, it went light censorship, medium censorship, then uglification, and this is all started in the West. The East, when it comes to like Japan, they're kind of, I would actually say like heavy censorship. Yeah, kind of in between light and heavy. They've done things where it would be very heavily censored a lot of their female video game characters, and they've done things where it's been light censorship. So the East has kind of definitely gone. So the East has definitely kind of gone like in between that like light and heavy censorship. Although like I do feel like they're kind of going towards more heavy censorship. And when I say the East, I mean Japan. When I say the West, they've already gone through light censorship, heavy censorship, and uglification. And like I said, I want to kind of just go through that briefly. I don't want this video to be too long. And I wanted to kind of explain my experience with video games, how much years I've been playing video games, as well as like who I am as a person, and that like I'm a very good person. I'm a very caring person. I'm a very passionate person. I've always believed treat others how you want to be treated. I believe everybody has the right to express themselves. Whether it's verbally or creatively, and has a right to free expression, as well as and free speech and a free market. But I'm also somebody that is very caring, I'm very passionate, and I'm just somebody that like treat others how you want to be treated, and I respect everybody's individual right to kind of make decisions for themselves, and I not try and speak on behalf of other people. That's kind of who I am as a person, and besides, I'm just being very easygoing, and I'm not somebody that likes to start up conflict, because I just really think that it's a lot more easier to treat others how you want to be treated, and and just and be respectful to that everybody has the right to be independent and have individual rights as well. As individual rights, I mean, has the rights to, especially as a Canadian or American, really, even if you're not Canadian or American, that everybody should have this right as well of just free speech, freedom of expression, and a free market. So that's who I am as a person. Like I said, I'm a very easygoing person. I don't like to cause conflict. I believe in treating others how you want to be treated, and that everybody has individual and right to freedom of expression, free speech, and free market. And when if it's freedom of expression, I think everybody should be able to express themselves artistically and creatively. I think everybody should have a right to a free market to determine what they want for themselves as a consumer or a customer, and not have that dictated by anybody else that's offended about content that you're not offended about. And free speech, I think, as long as you're not calling towards violence or for violence, you should be able to express your opinions, even if, somebody disagrees with it. So that's who I am as a person. So now I'm going to go through the 3 stages of censorship. Like I said, this predominantly started with the West, and it's definitely, you can tell it's gone to the East as well. They're not at the same stages as the West, such as Canada and the United States, but they're definitely getting there. And I'm very disappointed in South Korea. I'm going to apologize for kind of like what I said with my first, with one of my Stellar Blade videos comparison, expressing myself with anger. I was just very pissed off. I think the reason why I was very pissed off is because I feel like I was lied to. I really believe that South Korea, the company's shift up was, going to be honest and truthful and stand by their word of no censorship with Stellar Blade. And I honestly feel like I've been lied to and betrayed, because and I was really hoping and placing and really, well, not just hoping but willing to really give them all the support that I could. The fact is, I bought two of those games, and it cost me a total of $210. And when I'm spending buying two copies at a cost of $210 and feeling like I'd been lied to and betrayed, because I was promised something that I feel like I didn't get, yeah, I think I actually have a very good reason why I was very angry and expressed myself with a lot of anger. So I'm going to go through the three stages. The first stage, like I was saying, is basically a light censorship. And what light censorship entails is basically little things. Nothing at this point that was really too severe. There was still little things that you can definitely tell. Characters, specifically female characters, were censored in very ways, by very subtle ways. For one, the breasts were slightly reduced. And then the curvature of the hourglass figure of specifically only female video game characters were reduced. So the body proportions were reduced. Not drastically, but they were definitely reduced in proportion when it comes to the hourglass figure of specifically only female video game characters, as well having the breasts slightly reduced. What also came with light censorship was adding more clothes and fabric. And the adding more clothes and fabric was, and adding those additional piece of cloth and additional piece of clothing around the breasts. And and around the buttocks, and then around the groin and the pelvis. So that would be anywhere around the inner thighs, the waist, and the hips, and basically a lot more clothing and cloth around the breast. And that was basically covering to and make sure that less skin was showing. And less skin was showing specifically and to cover up the cleavage. Cover up the side boob and under boob, and then so yeah, like I said, light censorship. Nothing really drastic happened, but there was definitely things that were slightly altered, and usually it was the size of the breast, the hourglass shape was slightly changed of the body proportions of the female video game characters, as well as adding more clothing, and it wasn't covering up like a female video game character from neck to toe and clothing, but it was definitely adding more clothing and more pieces of fabric around the breast and around, like I said, the groin and the butt. And around the breast, it was, specifically, it was to cover up any cleavage that was being shown, as well as the side boob and under boob. And even if it wasn't just if it wasn't all three of those areas of the breast, it was at least one of those areas of the breast. And then a lot of times it was all three areas of the breast, in the side boob, under boob, and cleavage. Sometimes it was just, one of those three things. And then when it came to the lower proportion of a female video game character, it was, and covering up, more of the skin around the groin area, or the in the inner thighs, or the hips, or the waist, and then even more around the butt. So that was kind of the light censorship. Like I said, it was not drastic, but there was definitely changes and alterations to the physical physique of the female video game character, as well as adding more clothing. And that happened with pretty much the first 10 years, around the first couple of years of the 10 years of woke feminist ideology that was being pushed by the left and woke feminists. And then after we got to about the middle, and then that became more drastic censorship. And at this point, the thing with the light censorship, that was kind of like, how could I say this? There were some games that came out with jiggle physics, but the focus was trying to get as much games out as possible with no jiggle physics. So there were games coming out with jiggle physics, but there was actually a lot of focus on how can I say this? Trying to not really have that within the game, and trying to exclude that from the game. So there was games coming out with like no physics whatsoever when it came to jiggle physics. There were a few that did come out still, but there was a good portion that came out with no jiggle physics. And then, like I said, I got to the heavy censorship. And then the heavy censorship was, like I said, covering a female video game character from neck to toe and clothing, and just pretty much not showing any skin whatsoever, except for the face. As well as this point, I'm completely making sure that everything came out with no jiggle physics, and severely reducing the breast size instead of just slightly reducing the breast size to an A cup and a B cup, and making sure that there was no female character that had larger breasts than in a B cup. I mean, no, making sure that every female character came out that didn't have breasts that was larger than a C cup, I should say. Even like a D cup was a little too big, so they really reduced the breast quite a bit to only an A or a B cup when it came to heavy censorship. As well as, like I said, covering up the female video game character from neck to toe in clothing, making sure that the only skin that was being revealed was the face. And as well, at this point, making sure that every game that came out absolutely excluded jiggle physics. So at this point, like, sex appeal and fan service was completely excluded from video games, thrown out the window. And there was just nothing really sexy or appealing anymore at this point when it came from light censorship more drastically, just adding more and more censorship to heavy censorship. Female characters were just bland, generic, ordinary, and had really nothing appealing about them, especially for fan service or sex appeal, and they were just bland. And just an average typical woman. Nothing about them there was nothing physically about them that made them really special anymore, or even unique. So they were just very generic, very bland and dull, especially physically. And it didn't really happen with the personality as much. It was just physically. With the heavy censorship, they were just bland, dull, and just unattractive, and really had nothing physically unique or special about them, because every female video game character with the heavy censorship was just made very generic. Like I said, and they reduced the breast size to only an A cup and B cup, and really, how can I say this? Really discouraged, in anything being larger than a B cup when it came to female video game characters, as well as covering them from neck to toe in clothing, and completely removing the jiggle physics of pretty much every game that came out. So, and only having this face of the skin revealed. So female characters were very dull, were very bland, and this happened kind of in the middle of the 10 years. Light censorship was at the beginning of the 10 years. Heavy censorship was in the middle of the 10 years. And then we kind of got to uglification. Now, the uglification, that was basically, at this point, like sex appeal when it got to heavy censorship was completely out the window. And yeah, sex appeal and fan service was completely out the window at this point. It was completely excluded from female video game characters by the time I got to heavy censorship. And so it got to uglification, and what happened with uglification is it kind of made it more focus on making even now the face. Well, it focused more on the personality. The heavy censorship focused more on the physical attributes of a female video game character, completely excluding any sex appeal and fan service, and really focused more on the physical aspects of a female video game character. What happened with the uglification is, because the heavy censorship was more focused on the physical attributes and aspects of a female video game character, and heavily just excluding anything that made them feminine, the uglification became about more their personality. And what I mean by personality is at this point when it was just making them very masculine, very manly, very very domineering. And when I mean domineering, it was how can I say this? Just really belittling men, and making them seem like whatever a man can do, they were just more capable and competent than the man that was in the same video game as them. And just constantly undermining male video game characters, and just pretty much making them seem like they were there to uplift female video game characters at the expense of making male video game characters look like they were completely incompetent or they were completely evil, and just overall just not really good characters that weren't there even for any kind of support, but just to be a stepping stone to be able to portray female video game characters as more domineering and more masculine and more capable at the expense of male video game characters, and just, you know, and cutting them down. And you didn't even see that with video games, but you also seen that in movies quite a lot with this Me Too movement, especially the forces female empowerment. So yeah, at this point when it came to uglification, it was really at this point, you know, I just completely making the female video game characters' personality just masculine with no femininity to them. And unfortunately, it also got to the phase 2 when it came to just uglification. Now I'm making the face more angular, more rigid, more tough. Not really that soft, light skin, or that the round face, or wider eyes, or puffy cheeks. Like they made, like I said, the face just a lot more angular. Eyes were a lot narrower. The face was more rough. It wasn't soft. It wasn't, you know, and the cheeks weren't puffy. It was just a very rough, and even the texture of the face was very rough. So you didn't have that like softness in the face, that light texture. You didn't have that roundness or the wide eyes. It was the complete opposite of all that. So, like I said, at this point, like with heavy censorship, it was more focused on the female physical attributes of kind of like excluding anything they could that made that character appearance look feminine, with the body specifically. When it got to uglification, it went from the body to the face and doing the same thing what they did to the face to the body, and really taking about that femininity and making it a more masculine face, as well as really putting that focus on the personality, to berate male video game characters and belittle male video game characters at their expense. So female video game characters can just look like they're superior in every aspect over men, especially male video game characters. So it became, like I said, with uglification, the focus became, you know, defeminizing the face and making it masculine, as well as giving female video game characters a more masculine personality. And that's what kind of happened at how can I say this? This is kind of what happened like with the more recent years, with this 10 years of woke feminist ideology being pushed by woke feminists. And so at this point, like, you don't have really any representation of like a female video game character anymore, especially in the 10 years in the West. There's really not, for those 3 stages that I was talking about. And yeah, so those are the 3 stages anyways that I wanted to discuss and kind of describe. And I know, like, somebody's saying, like, what are you talking about? You're talking out of your ass. You're not making any sense. But like I said, I've played video games for more than 20 years of my life. I have tried pretty much every genre and every category of video games you can ever think imaginable that I have played. And yeah, so I've seen over the 20 years how drastic changes have gotten with the video game industry. And it's just frustrating because they've wanted to make a space for every other gamer that possibly aren't even gamers, just to make space for these people so they can feel included at the expense of taking away gamers like me that are straight white male gamers that, you know, I feel like have every right to have a preference to be represented in a video game, but those preferences are purposely and forcibly being excluded from video games, that, you know, I myself would have as a straight white male gamer, which I'm sure a lot of other straight white male gamers would have as well. And those preferences of what I specifically like are purposely and forcibly being excluded to make room for other people that have different preferences that and are just not aligned to what my preferences are, so they can feel more welcome into the space of video games, just because you don't want to offend them. So yeah, it's a shame that the 3 stages has happened. The East is kind of going in that direction, and I'm just really disappointed with Shift Up. I really, like I said, was going to support them with every fiber of my being, and stick by their side and really support Shift Up when it comes to Stellar Blade, because I really believe that there was going to be no censorship. I thought they were straightforward, down to earth, very base people that were just honest and understood that games shouldn't be censored whatsoever, regardless of who they offend. And unfortunately, it seems like as much as they led consumers to believe they're not the type of people that were going to be bending the knee to censorship, it seems like that was a complete lie. They have bent the knee to censorship. They've definitely altered a lot of costumes and a lot of things about Stellar Blade. And I'm just feeling very disappointed and angry because, like I said, I feel like I was completely lied to. I was expecting to get a game, and it's a game that I kind of got, but at the same time, it was a game that I didn't get that I was expecting because, censorship has clearly had happened with Stellar Blade, even if and everybody wants to admit that there wasn't any kind of pressure from Sony for Shift Up to censor anything. So yeah, I'm just disappointed. Like I said, I really just wanted to do this video to kind of explain how much a little bit about me, what I'm like, who I am. And the reason why I kind of want to do that too is because I know there's going to be woke journalists, consultants, and localizers that's going to demonize people like me. And that's going to say that and I'm a horrible person because I have a preference of wanting sex appeal and fan service with female video game characters in my game. And I know that specific preference of wanting that in video games, where in cleavage is being shown, side boob, under boob is being shown, a good amount of skin's being shown, and there's a good variety of revealing costumes and outfits for female video game characters. That's gonna give people the impression that I'm a bad person, or I'm a bad guy, or and it's gonna give people that and have a completely different preference than me, or a completely different opinion than me, or or a different a different opinion of that I have, or a different perspective of what I have, of what I prefer and what I like. That's gonna kind of feel like that should give them the right to insult me, to verbally attack me, and to kind of smear me in an image that's not true to who I am characteristically wise. And characteristically, like I said, I'm sorry that I'm easygoing. I don't like conflict. I try and avoid conflict. I believe in treating people how you want to be treated. I feel that as well as that everybody has the right to be an individual, as well as to have those rights as an individual. That and people should be entitled to, especially when you're American or you're Canadian citizen, that and live on the land in a country that is founded on the prospect and the idea of freedom. And for that reason, and I don't feel like anyone's life should ever be dictated by others. I've never been the kind of person that feels like I need to dictate other people's lives, or and what they have the rights to, or what they don't have the rights to. And I believe that everybody has that right of individual freedom, whether it's free speech, free expression, or a free market. And that's just the kind of person that I am. But like I say, because I have a certain preference, I know in woke left-wing woke feminists that are trying to push this woke ideology, and they're going to kind of smear my characteristic and my personality of who I am, and they're gonna be calling me probably an incel, transphobic, sexist, a goomer, or whatever that word is. All these basically things to kind of hurt me and a bad perspective of others, and just mirror who I am as a human being, and just mirror my personality and my characteristics. That kind of defines who I am as an individual and as a human being. So, like I said, I know my preferences, my personal preference. There are going to be people that are kind of going to see it the same as me and agree with me. Maybe not on everything, maybe on everything, or maybe on some things, such as, or the majority of you know, and what I like, and what my preferences are personally as an individual. And so I know, like, there's going to be people that, like I said, don't agree, don't have the same preferences of what makes me an individual, of what I like, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I think everybody has that individual right to be who they want to be, and you know, and has the right to, you know, and have their own opinions and be able to express those opinions, you know, and be able to have that to be able to speak their mind. So, like I said, you know, and I just think it's gonna people that don't see eye to eye, you know, and that have contrary opinions to one another, are always going to use that as an excuse to feel like they're justified in, you know, and just going out of their way to bash a person's characteristic and personality. I'm not sure why. It comes probably from insecurity, I think, most of the time. To, like, you know, and verbally insult somebody, and, you know, and just to bash their characteristic and their personality. So I know, like I said, people are gonna insult me, they're gonna call me an incel, and etc., and all those other names that, you know, are typically thrown out of people's mouths when they just don't agree with somebody. Or they just don't share the same beliefs or the same opinions or the same preferences as another individual. So, you know, and it kind of is what it is, you know, and no matter what, you're going to have people that kind of, when they disagree with somebody, you know, and are going to use tactics like that of just, you know, and smearing the person's character, smearing their personality, and just, you know, attacking them with insults and just names. That they somehow think should define the person's characteristic and character, when honestly it just shouldn't. I think what should define a person's characteristic and character is that individual themselves. But unfortunately, like I said, you're gonna have people, when they disagree with somebody I don't see eye to eye, are gonna use, you know, those tactics to try and define somebody else's personality and characteristics of who they are as an individual. So, like I said, I think it's a very underhand tactic to use. I think it's a tactic that a lot of people use, especially the ones, you know, and that just don't really care about anybody but themselves. That just, you know, and only care about being narcissistic and just, you know, and wanting things their way. And it's a tactic they use when they don't get their way. It's a tactic they use when when they just don't get their way and they want to play the victim, or, you know, and things like that. And like I said, this video I just wanted to talk about the 3 stages of light censorship, light censorship, heavy censorship. The medium censorship is kind of like in between the light censorship and heavy censorship. And that's just honestly going from the light censorship to heavy censorship, where the light censorship is just getting more drastic and more intense over those years, to the point where I got to heavy censorship. So the medium censorship is just all I can describe for that is light censorship getting more drastic to the point where it's getting to heavy censorship. But like, where you're gonna see the most changes as definitely the light censorship and heavy censorship to the uglification of only specifically female video game characters. So I just wanted to also kind of talk about myself a little bit, just to make sure that like when somebody sees this video, they want to leave comments, which you're freely welcome to do that because I believe in free speech. If you want to go ahead and leave comments where you're trying to like insult my character and kind of bash my characteristics of who I am as an individual and my personality and my preferences, go right ahead. You're completely welcome to do that. And it's within your right to do so. I won't take it personally. I might though, but I'm gonna make sure my best not to take it personally, because like I said, that's a right that you have. But yeah, I just wanted to, like I said, talk about the 3 stages that I've experienced of playing video games for more than 20 years when it comes to censorship. And unfortunately, we're at a generation where all it takes is somebody to be offended about something, and trying to get their way by playing a victim. And when they by making it seem like somebody else is the corporate. Somebody else is at fault, so they can allow themselves to be the victim, and that way they can say that and something makes them uncomfortable, to force others to conform and to comply to their demands. Unfortunately, that's all it takes now for people to bend a knee and to give in to somebody that and takes offense of something because they decided to play the victim. Yeah, and like I said, we're in a world where like these days people are just snowflakes, and don't have really a tough skin, and and just want to find reasons to be offended about something so they can get the things they want their ways, and so they can pretend to be the victim. So yeah, and the only way to be the victim is to find offense in something, and make it seem like it's personally an attack towards that individual, when it's not. But and all it takes is just to pretend and one little inconvenience that that you're offended about is enough to treat it like it's an attack against that individual, or so you can be a victim, and so you can force change and for people to comply and conform. Unfortunately, and that's just what we live in these days. Like I said, we just live in a world that's a bunch of snowflakes that's easily offended, and use what they're offended about so they can be the victim and pretend to be the victim, when really all they're doing that for is so they can force change onto other individuals, and take other individuals' rights away from them, so they're more accessible, not accessible, but coerced into and strong-armed into compliance and conformality of who that person is as an individual, completely altering that right of that person and being who they want to be. So yeah, like I said, I don't know if I can really explain much else. I think I've pretty much gone over all this video. I mean, I think I've gone through everything in this video. So yeah, all I can say is I'm very disappointed in Shift Up. I hope they uncensored a lot of stuff that they've censored. Even though the director of Shift Up is saying that what has been censored is the intended version of the game. I really hope it isn't. I think fans really wanted to have a game that didn't feel like it was censored, or and finally having a character that and isn't how can I say this, isn't afraid to show any fan service and sex appeal. And what I mean by that is, and finally having female video game characters that have revealing costumes back. You can say that, yeah, there's the costume that doesn't it's the base costume where you're not wearing a costume is a very revealing costume, and I'm not gonna say it isn't. It is, but like people were expecting, I think when they bought the game, that all the costumes, or at least the majority of the costumes, were going to be just as revealing when it came to Eve, when it comes to showing a certain amount of skin, and that doesn't seem to be the case. I think and maybe not everybody that bought the game was kind of hoping for something like that. I know personally I was, and I'm sure there were other gamers that have kind of was hoping for that. Other gamers probably don't care about that, and that's perfectly fine. I think games should have options. I think to really, if you're going to be a game developer, if you really want to cater to everybody, you should be able to do that, but that means specifically making sure that you're kind of catering towards everybody. And what I mean by everybody is not just a selective minority or majority. Making sure that a game comes out with as much options as possible for every type of gamer that has every certain type of preference. I know that sounds like that's a daunting chore and task to be able to pull off. And I understand that, and games are not really at the stage where like they can kind of do that because they're always pressured of getting their game out on time, especially when a lot of games have deadlines. So unfortunately, because of that reason and the amount of time it takes for a game to be developed and the amount of manpower it takes, you can't really always make a game to kind of cater towards everybody. But I think it's just shift up, kind of like presented itself as a gaming company that was like their target audience was and for gamers like me, knowing gamers that actually do like mature content and extremely revealing costumes. It kind of like I think presenting themselves in that way, especially with the whole no censorship games coming out worldwide with no censorship for any country as well, and just pretty much the director for Shift Up seemed like he was just a very down-to-earth based person. Really kind of gave, I think, the impression that like he was the type of guy that would make a game for gamers like me. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case, and I honestly at this point just don't think Sony or really Xbox or really any company is going to be able to make a game for me, and for a straight male gamer, a white straight male gamer that just wants to have a female video game character in a game that and is absolutely gorgeous and attractive, that has an extremely revealing costume that has fan service and sex appeal. Like I said, just because that's my preference doesn't make me a bad person. I'm a very easygoing person. I believe in treating people how I want to be treated. I believe in respecting other people's individual rights, and I believe in a free market, free speech, and freedom of expression. So, like I said, I know this video people are gonna bash me, trying to smear my my characteristics and my personality and my character. So if you want to do that, go right ahead. Leave comments whenever you see this video or any of my other videos. But just to let you know, like I'm a pretty good guy if you get to know me. So, but yeah, it doesn't really matter because everybody has feels like these days they're justified, even if they feel like they're even if personally I think and it smearing somebody's character, making somebody seem like they're the worst person when and quite possibly they're not the worst person on the face of the world. It's just a very cheap, low-hand tactic to use, especially simply when you just don't see eye to eye with somebody, or you just don't agree with somebody, and both people just have contradictory preferences and opinions. I think, like I said, it's a very cheap tactic, a very disrespectful tactic, and it's it's, I don't know, it's just very very insulting to steep that low, to do things like that. Especially, you know, like I said, smearing somebody's character, seeming, making them seem like something that they're not, and especially getting to a point where you're calling for physical violence and death threats. I don't think anybody deserves that. I've never been a person that believes I would ever do that to anybody, or that anybody should do that to me or anybody else. Like I said, I believe in treating people how you want to be treated, and what that means by that is, you know, respecting individual rights of others, regardless of how offended you might be, or how much you disagree with somebody. But that's all I have to say for this video. Normally I'd be talking to playing a game, but I think at this point I just want to talk about Stellar Blade, 3 stages of censorship, my experience with video games, and who I am as an individual. And I hope everybody has a good day, and yeah, let's try and get Stellar Blade, you know, to a version of a game that, you know, gamers like myself can enjoy, as well as, you know, making sure that there's always making sure that there's games out there as well besides Stellar Blade that is for other people as well, and that, you know, and we can come to a stage and a state of everybody having a game out there that's been developed that, you know, and they can enjoy, because, you know, and I think everybody has that right to find a game that's meant for them, that they can kind of be who they are, and be able to enjoy to their fullest. Like I said, you're not going to be able to get every game catering to everybody, but that doesn't mean that there can't be a game that specifically caters to somebody, and that there's enough variety out there that, you know, and everybody can find a game that they can enjoy for, you know, and who they are as an individual, and what their preferences are, and what they like as an individual. Alright, well, I'm gonna leave it at this and just say I hope everybody has a good day, and take care. Once again, I didn't mean to shout and yell in my video with expressing myself with anger, but like I said, once again, I just feel like I was lied to and betrayed, and I'm sure, you know, and Shift Up didn't mean to make me feel that way or cause that impression, but yeah, it's definitely something that I feel did happen, and Shipped Up, I don't really believe owes anybody an apology. What they chose to do is what they chose to do. All I can say, like I said, is that I'm just very disappointed. I really, like I said, was expecting to get something that I didn't get, because I thought when they said no censorship, that meant also revealing costumes. And when I meant revealing costumes, it was a game that, in a company that was, for once, you know, I'm not going to censor their game, especially censoring certain parts of the female anatomy, you know, and certain parts of the female body, you know, and that's pretty much what I thought when I heard, you know, no censorship. You know, and that they weren't gonna, you know, censor, you know, the breast in any form or in any way. That they were gonna actually have costumes that, you know, revealed a good amount of skin, that were revealing costumes, and, you know, and showed Eve from Stellar Blade's physical proportions, you know, and around the breast, around every other part of her body. And unfortunately, we didn't get that, and I didn't get that, and yeah. All I'm gonna say is, like, I felt like I was lied to, and shame on Shift Up for bringing us a game that we expected to get that we didn't get, even if they didn't mean to do that intentionally, or they meant to do it intentionally. I understand it's probably just something that there was a chance that it was a misunderstanding, but yeah, I guess it is what it is. Yeah, like I said, all I can really do is be disappointed and hope that, you know, maybe Shift Up, even though if they meant to do what they did intentionally, or if they didn't mean to do it intentionally, that, you know, I hope they can bring some more costumes to Stellar Blade that, are costumes that somebody like myself can enjoy. And costumes that are a lot more revealing than the ones that I feel that have been censored. Okay, I'm going to say, like I said, everybody have a good time, a good day, and stay safe and take care.